Once upon a time, there was a game called Conker's Bad Fur Day by a company called Rareware. After years of carrying the Nintendo 64's library on its back, Conker would become the studio's swan song for the system. Even though the game would only sell 17 copies when it first released, it would achieve cult classic status and everyone would know about it eventually. The way people talk about this game today, you'd never believe it was a flop. It's kinda like Earthbound in that way. Conker was a technical marvel with some of the greatest visuals on the system by far, while also having hours of voice-acted cutscenes, which was very uncommon for the hardware. But what people really remember it for is its irreverent humor, which was completely at odds with its art direction. The visuals are all cute and whimsical, while the subject matter is profane and foul. There's extreme gore, there's drinking, pissing, giant cave women with giant cave boobs.
Oh yeah.
You needed an ID to go to the E3 booth for the game because they served beer. You had this very sexually charged ad that probably only ran on MTV at midnight. It was as close as you could get to Banjo and Kazooie telling you to fuck off. So great visuals, great audio, funny dialogue, and even a funny multiplayer mode. But what if I told you that the main gameplay is actually kinda mid? Yeah, sorry folks. I recently replayed this game and came to the conclusion that I pretty much liked everything about it except for the actual gameplay. I think the platforming is inferior to Rare's own Banjo-Kazooie. I think the mechanics are very hit and miss. I think it's a game that does a lot of things but not always particularly well. It has variety, make no mistake, but if I'm actually being honest, I rarely see the gameplay as anything more than a means to an end.
Don't get any funny ideas now. This is purely a means to an end.
That end being the funny cutscenes, unlike Banjo-Kazooie, which is just straight up fun on its own terms. When you think about it, this game almost predicted the modern cinematic prestige game as early as 2001, before that became common. People remember Uncharted and The Last of Us for their narratives far more than the actual gameplay because save for some brilliant moments and the actual narrative context surrounding it, the gameplay is comparatively unremarkable next to other games with similar mechanics. I mean, Ellie can't even drop a box of Cheetos on a dude's head. I mean, come on now. The more I think about Conker, the more I feel that it's really the same way, but at least it's funny. It's not fun, but it's funny. The idea of Conker still has a lot of power though, and I think great things can still be done with the character. But with Rare putting all their energy into Sea of Thieves, it's in the hands of the fans now, which brings us to today's topic. It's called Conker's Hyrule Tale, and it's a ROM hack of Link to the Past of all things. You couldn't imagine two more opposite games if you tried. I feel like this is a game that everybody who's heard of it speaks highly of, or at the very least remembers well. It's been around for a while, at least 8-ish years, but it's been gradually updated and balanced during that time, which is very much appreciated. The version that I'm playing is the latest version with all kinds of tweaks to the difficulty and stability, and I want to make very special note of this because if you played this game when it first came out and you got fed up with this or that or the other thing, you might want to try it again because it's a lot better now. Like Bad Fur Day, this game also has some impressive tech powering it as it supports the media streaming unit, which adds a bunch of super high quality audio. It's completely optional since the regular synthesized tunes are great in their own right, but it's a very A+ for effort type thing, you know? They really didn't have to do that, but they did it anyway. That's just cool. The game takes place after the events of Conker's Bad Fur Day, after Conker becomes king and crashes the economy by spending all his money on booze and hookers. But before he could be executed for his crimes, a time-traveling doctor saved him and sucked him into a rift between realities, or something like that. I assume the doctor is Doctor Who, even though I know nothing about Doctor Who. Anytime I hear about a time-traveling doctor in fiction, I just assume that's who it is. Conker must find 9 human rings of courage to escape the Matrix or something. The game includes a bunch of references to movies and TV, much like the original. As a matter of fact, the game does in fact take place inside of the Matrix, at least as far as we know from the beginning. And while in the Matrix, you get to enter the Animus from Assassin's Creed, so you're inside a simulated reality inside of another. It's like if you were playing Berserk and then the guy in Berserk started playing Space Invaders. Also, I love how the most dated thing in this ROM hack is the Assassin's Creed references. It's so old old that Assassin's Creed was still a respected franchise. They got the Clockwork Orange reference in there for good measure, talking about the good old ultra-violence, which for people who think that's from Doom, no, it's from Clockwork Orange. You can go to Homer Simpson's house and have a conversation at the door, but he won't let you in, not even for a pint of Duff beer. There's a whole Star Wars episode where you have to get a stormtrooper outfit to breathe in space. Then there's one of my favorite references when you fight Ganon in the beginning and he goes, "You've killed me!" and you're like, good. Some ROM hacks will take you to the Windows 98 dimension, but this game is even scarier because it takes you to the Mac OS dimension. Please God, get me out of here. I don't want to die in this place. I appreciate the gaming references more than the movie references though. The hub world is Peach's castle. There's an entire Resident Evil chapter. There's an old school Mario level. You can go to Pallet Town and get a Pikachu tail, and look, there's a whole level full of Metal Gears. Hyrule Tale is very upfront about the kind of game that it is. Tingle is in the game and he sells you weed and beer. There's a strip club called the Pervy Goron and you're not allowed in because they're racist against squirrels, although there is a lady Goron with her breasts out who has the opposite problem and likes squirrels a little bit too much. There's a bar that says Wiggers drink free on Wigger Wednesday, so Conker goes into the bar and does his best impression of a white person pretending to be a black person inside of the Animus, inside of the Matrix, inside of a Link to the Past game, pretending to be a Conker game. But it turns out there was a glitch in the Matrix because the bartender reveals that it was a typo and it was supposed to be Wiggler Wednesday. Really? It was a typo? It says it twice. How could you make the exact same mistake twice in one sentence? I mean, shit, dog, homie, you can't be for real. You out here capping, fool. Miss me on that whack shit, yo. I'm not about this life, G. What else? Oh, I can't say that. In general, the game plays fine. It's Link to the Past, so you'll be completely up to speed if you're familiar with that game already. There are some new moves like this little dash that I have no footage of because I never figured out how it worked, but I've seen walkthroughs use it, so I'm probably just missing some stupid shit. One of my favorite quality of life improvements is the ability to adjust the text speed, which is a godsend for a game like this, especially considering the game has a habit of re-explaining things to you. The puzzles are pretty approachable for the most part, but there are some smart moments that made me turn my head a little and go, ah, okay, they were onto something here. There are definitely some crappier parts here and there though, like this shit right here. This is just like penis level game design. Navigation can also be a bit tricky. Peach's castle got some serious reno work and I do not understand how she approved of any of this. I mean, I don't even think that's up to code. There is an option to alter the difficulty of bosses, which I assume was a revision in response to grievances with the earlier versions of the game. I left it on the harder difficulty out of curiosity, and really, I think the main thing is that the bosses take way too many hits to kill. Especially this asshole that drained all my Deku seeds and dynamite and I had to run around with a shit-ass hammer. It got to the point sometimes where I was wondering if my attacks were actually doing anything. I didn't try the easier difficulty because that would make me a fake gamer, but I'm glad it's an option considering this. It's a very conscientious choice. One annoying thing is that since the recovery items are drugs and alcohol, they actually fuck with your vision, like the weed has you like this and the beer has you like this. Now, when I used to drink 2 years ago, I would get tanked, like really badly. But not on only one beer, man. I never would have guessed that Conker was a lightweight. Although I suppose he is a squirrel. Really, much like the original Conker's Bad Fur Day, I don't think this is a game you play for the gameplay as much as for the subject matter and atmosphere. This should not be the kind of game that rips your dick off and throws it on the roof and tells you to fetch it like a dog, unless the developer somehow believes that would make the game funnier. It should be at least a little bit accessible so you actually have a chance at experiencing all the goofy shit the game has to offer. Because the primary draw of the game is its goofy-ass dialogue and levels, I don't want to spoil way too much more for you. I think you'd be better off appreciating it with your own eyes. Like Conker's Bad Fur Day, it's not always the most fun game in the world, but it is funny, and that's good enough. Now that's all for today, but be sure to come back tomorrow, and don't be shy about it either. Stay tuned, and Merry Christmas, cousins!